Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic Hypersonic.
Positronic hypersonic.
Positronic Hypersonic.
I'm Barry Peacock, and I'm here to talk to you about the series premiere of Daredevil, Born Again. It was a 2-episode premiere, and the first episode was called Heaven's Half Hour. As it starts, Matt, Foggy, and Karen, of course, the 3 main characters from the Daredevil show as it ran on Netflix a number of years ago, hit Rosie's bar after work before Bullseye, a main Daredevil antagonist who, of course, featured in the 3rd season of the original show, lures Foggy into the street and shoots him sniper style from a rooftop, prompting Matt to don his Daredevil suit and fight him, which leads to Matt tossing him off a different rooftop. A year later, Foggy is deceased, and Kingpin selects his suit for the day as his wife heads a meeting of the 5 families, which she's been running in his absence. He was, of course, in jail. Until he shows up there, and they talk about his being newly out of prison and running for mayor. Matt, who has a new law firm with a partner who used to be with the district attorney's office, attends Bullseye's sentencing hearing to make a statement against Bullseye, who gets life in prison. Visiting from San Francisco, where she now lives, Karen shows up for the occasion, briefly reuniting with Matt, with whom her relationship is very much strained, and they talk about how he's not Daredevil anymore. Kingpin then declares his candidacy for mayor publicly. Matt meets with a woman that his law firm partner told him was looking for a lawyer, and whom his partner told that he was looking for a therapist, which is apparently what the woman is, for which he later scolds his partner before meeting with his investigator, whom he's had looking into Kingpin and his wife's legitimacy, which seemed to be solid. Matt, who's now started dating the therapist he'd previously been tricked into meeting, as his law firm partner had intended, then meets with Kingpin at a diner, and they have a pleasantish, if awkward, conversation during which Kingpin says he's actually no longer Kingpin and just wants to help New York, and asks Matt why he's no longer Daredevil, to which Matt responds by saying he had to stop being Daredevil after crossing a line by trying to kill Bullseye, but that he will come for Fisk if Fisk steps out of line, prompting Fisk to say, "It's good that Matt is done with Daredevil because he won't tolerate vigilantism as mayor," which he then actually becomes by winning the election, before declaring to Vanessa that he won't kill someone called Hadam, who it seems is her lover. And that's where the first episode ended. The second episode was called Optics, and as it starts, Fisk addresses the city on New Year's Eve and talks about how vigilantism by the likes of Punisher, a guy in a spider suit, and Daredevil won't be tolerated, while some men fight in the subway, leading to the gruesome accidental death of one who was a cop, while another turns out to also be a cop. Fisk, meanwhile, gets ready to meet with the DA, fire chief, and police chief, and is informed that Vanessa's reluctance to be a visible part of Fisk's mayorship is hurting his image. Matt meets with Hector, the man who accidentally killed the cop in the subway, and says he'll represent him, though his bail hearing goes badly. Fisk comes across a giant pothole on his way to a meeting and calls over a nearby work crew to stop their other work and fill it immediately, then meets with journalist Bibi Ulrich, daughter of Ben Ulrich, the reporter he murdered with his bare hands during the Netflix series, and she tells him that he's in danger of losing the loyalty of the police department, the commissioner of which he meets with after the dead cop's funeral, only to be scolded by the police chief for his past and told that it is the commissioner's mission to see to it that Fisk isn't mayor for long. Matt's investigator accidentally discovers that Hector is the vigilante White Tiger, and he talks with him about how it complicates his case. The police commissioner resigns, but Fisk subtly shows him a photo of his family while talking about his own lunch, and causes the commissioner to change his mind. Matt follows a cop who he thinks is important to Hector's case, as Matt's girlfriend meets her new counseling clients, Fisk and his wife, whom it seems were entirely out of communication while Fisk was away. Meanwhile, the cop that Matt followed sets out to kill the man who escaped from the cops when Hector was fighting them in the subway, and whom Matt needs to help clear Hector. So he goes to see the man and ends up fighting the followed cop and another cop who came to kill the man after sending the man out the fire escape, and he seemingly kills one of the cops. That's where the second episode ended. So I did really enjoy these first two episodes of the new series. And it's funny because I only started watching the original Daredevil show because this show was coming, and I only finished watching the entire three seasons like 3 nights ago. So for me, the gap between the end of the original series and the new show is only like 3 nights. So it's all fresh for me, which I think is great. I think I would have been bothered by trying to recall things if I hadn't seen the original show so recently. I would have been like, what happened in the show about that? And what's the connection there? But I didn't have to deal with that. So that was pretty cool. The actors, of course, don't seem to have aged, which is great. Vincent D'Onofrio, I think, looks a little less broad. He might have lost weight, and so he looks a little less imposing than he did in the Netflix show, but it's fine because he's still plenty imposing. And, just a fantastic actor who does a great job in this, as he did in the Netflix show. I, of course, am totally bummed out that they killed Foggy and so soon. I think it's, just in the first 5 minutes, I think that's awful. He was the heart of the original show, really and truly, and such a good character. And they just often killed him, which, wow, okay. I was stunned by that and not terribly pleased by it. But what are you going to do? I'm sure the actor isn't thrilled about it either. Hey, we're going to reboot the show. We're going to do, oh, cool. Yeah, you're going to be in it for 10 minutes. Oh, great. Maybe he'll be in flashback. But yeah, I did really enjoy it. I thought that the action sequences that they had in the first couple episodes were really good and totally lived up to the excellent action sequences that they had on the original show. Especially the very first action sequence of the first episode, where you actually see Matt, aka Daredevil, swinging around on a line, like kind of like Spider-Man swings around on his web, which you didn't really see in the Netflix show. And I thought it was really just cool to see him whipping around on a line and flying through windows. It was really, really cool. I like where they're going with the Fisk character. One of the great things about the original series on Netflix is the character work that they did for all the cast, all the characters, and the character work that they did with Kingpin, just in the writing, never mind the acting, which is off the charts, was just phenomenal. And I say that because, as I said in my comments when I did a reaction to the trailer for this series, the Fisk character was a character that I came to actually like as a person, almost, because of course he's a vicious killer, but I found him to be very sympathetic. And that's different from a villain you might get in, say, a CW show, or for that matter, some of the other Marvel shows on Disney. And so it's just a great thing to watch because, on the one hand, like I said, he's a vicious killer and you're repulsed by him immensely. But on the other hand, he was a character that, and is a character still, that loves deeply. And, not only Vanessa, but his friends that were closest to him. And I think when you talk about how he loves deeply, I think that also includes the city. I think he really does love the city of New York when he talks about how he wants to improve the city, not only in this series, now that he's mayor, but in the previous series. I think he really means it. And, he was often careful to be respectful of other people, that were around him. And that's just not typical villain stuff. So I came to like Wilson Fisk as a person, the way they've depicted him on the Netflix show and the way they're depicting him now, while at the same time being, like I said, repulsed by him incredibly because he's so violent when push comes to shove. But it's just a great character to watch go through his paces. And they seem to have stuck with that in this series now, he's in marriage counseling with his wife because he loves her desperately and does not want to lose her. And it's genuine. And to see him, this vicious killer, willingly submit himself to actual counseling and to try to do the work of counseling, which is to improve yourself, whether it's in solo counseling or couples counseling, is just mind blowing, given that, again, he's this horrible murderer. So I just think that's fascinating. I think the other aspect of that whole thing that's fascinating is that Matt's girlfriend, who's the therapist, can't tell Matt that Fisk and his wife are her clients because of doctor-client privilege. So that's going to be a mind fuck, if you will, I'm sure, as the series goes. I love that they brought in the reporter Ben's daughter. This reporter Ben was a serious thorn in Fisk's side during the Netflix show, and Fisk killed him with his bare hands very violently. And now his daughter is interfacing with him also as a kind of reporter, although she does her reporting on the internet, whereas her father did it in print. So that whole thing is interesting, especially when he was meeting with her and realizes who she is, but of course has to immediately go stone faced so she doesn't pick up on any weirdness and realize that he killed her father. So that was a mind blowing thing. The other thing that I noticed about the first two episodes is how they characterized Fisk in part of the narrative where, sort of in the background as everything's happening during the episodes, you hear these little tidbits of members of the public talking about Fisk and news people talking about Fisk. And a lot of the things they were saying are similar to things that were said and that are still said about our current president, IRL. Because, of course, as a character, Fisk is very polarizing, especially as a politician, given that he's this big time criminal whom half of the public absolutely embraces because of his sort of no nonsense approach to things and his sort of populist rhetoric and strongman rhetoric. Because, of course, that all parallels real life. And I just thought it was interesting that they threw that dynamic in, that without saying it, they're painting him as a Trump-esque figure in the realm of politics, and I think that's interesting. I think a lot of people are not going to necessarily like that, but I think it was interesting. But yeah, that's really all there is to say about these two episodes. I thought they were really good, and I'm looking forward to watching the rest of the season and season two, which apparently is already in production, which is cool. Of course, I'll be back to do videos on the rest of the episodes as they're released. But for now, I'm going to get out of here. I'll be back with another video soon. Until I return, I wish you peace and long life.